Hello YouTube, I am Andrew Does Hair, and in this video I want to tell you how to get a haircut. What do you mean how to get a haircut? You walk in, you get your haircut. Okay, more specifically what I want to do is kind of give you some insight from the perspective of the person behind the chair on a lot of the aspects and issues that are involved in getting a haircut and things you can do to probably end up getting a better haircut that you're happier with, definitely have a better experience that's just runs smoother. And if you care to do this, make things easier on our end. There's a lot of things regarding getting a haircut for the first time from somebody that I've been finding over the years. There isn't really a standard etiquette regarding, and people will ask, like, well, I wasn't sure about this. And so I want to use this opportunity to kind of more or less prep potential clients before they come in for their first haircut to just understand how the system can work a little more smoothly. Now, here's a beautiful thing about our industry, is we all have different opinions. Some of us have the same opinions. And what I'm going to share in this video from my own perspective, some of it might be relatable to all barbers and hairstylists. Some of it might be unique to my chair. And it might even offend certain barbers and stylists. So if you disagree with anything I say here, whether you're a barber, a hairstylist, or even just a consumer, a client who doesn't do hair, instead of just giving me a thumbs down and moving on, go to the comments and let's discuss this, because I would love to have, ideally it would be nice if there was just threads down there of different perspectives on this so that when potential clients come across this video, they can see what you think too, not just what I think. Okay, I was just editing this video and I realized that I kept having this urge to splice in disclaimers to try to soften the blow of some of the things that I was saying. And ultimately, I just feel like I'm coming off very unlikable with some of the points that I'm making here, especially regarding booking policies. This got in my head and I started thinking, well, maybe I just shouldn't post this video. You're gonna look like a jerk. You're gonna get some haters for this. But the more I thought about it, I can think of dozens of hairstylists I know personally who would love to say these things, who would be so happy to have this out there for their clients, but we don't say a lot of these things because it comes off very unlikable. I mean, some of it seems a little bit harsh and it can easily make us seem unlikable and unforgiving and just mean, really. But at the end of the day, we are running a business and it's so hard because we care about our clients so much and we are actually friends with our clients. And so some of these lines as far as how businesses are conducted get blurred very easily within our industry. And because of that, when certain things should be addressed, it's very, very hard to do it. And some of the things that I'm going to say in this video, especially regarding scheduling and booking, are going to come off a little bit harsh. There's your trigger warning right there. It might offend you. It might make me look like a jerk. I'm fully prepared to get some negative comments about this. People are going to make fun of my hair because they don't like what I have to say about booking. I'm willing to take that because I do feel like a lot of barbers and hairstylists would love to have this information out there, but they don't want to be the ones to get the crap for looking like a jerk, for telling you not to message them at 11 p.m. on a Wednesday asking about an appointment, or to be the ones to tell you that they can't cut your hair if you show up 20 minutes late. So with all that said, let's move on. So the first thing I want to cover is how to make an appointment. If your stylist or your barber does online booking, go online to book. If they have a receptionist or a receptionist staff, call the receptionist. And if your barber or stylist prefers to book via text message or DMs on Instagram, then book that way. But if your barber or stylist has the booking app and they have the reception staff, see, I have both where I work, don't message them for a favor to be squeezed in unless you're treating it as a favor. And what I mean by that is this. If I have my reception staff and my website booking my day all the way up, somebody will message me and say, hey, can you get me in this weekend? And I'll go look at my schedule online, the same schedule they have access to. You can see where I have openings on my website. And I'll get back to them and say, no, sorry, dude, I'm fully booked. And they go, yeah, I know, I saw that on the website, but I just thought maybe I'd ask. If I'm booked, I'm booked. And if you ask me to fit you in, that's a favor, which is totally fine. I'm perfectly happy doing favors for clients. But here's the key. Some clients, if they get that favor one time, they want that favor every time. And they go, well, I messaged him last time, so I'll just message him again. Don't make it a habit to do that. Ask for favors when you need a favor, but the rest of the time, book online or book with the receptionist. You see, I'm not trying to complain here about this, just trying to show you from my perspective. I'll have 8 haircuts booked through the receptionist, and then through the course of the week, I'll get 5 messages saying, hey, can you squeeze me in? And so in the event that I do get a cancellation, first of all, I don't know it. The receptionist knows it first. And so you're better off requesting this from the receptionist. But if I do see that I have a cancellation, then I go, oh, I have a mental list of people who were, and I'll go dig through my DMs and try to remember who wanted to be squeezed in. Or sometimes I'll make a physical list, but not often because I don't often get cancellations. And so it just adds this extra work that isn't streamlined. I'm not the best guy to squeeze you in. The receptionist is the best person to squeeze you in. Or the morning, so I'll let you in on a secret here. 90% of cancellations happen the night before the haircut. So if you want a haircut on Saturday, check Friday night. Because on Fridays, we send out emails and calls and texts to confirm. And that's when 90% of people cancel. So if you want to get squeezed in, the most efficient way to do it is check the night before you want to get in. Now, that's not a guaranteed thing, but I will say you are 90% more likely to get in that way last minute than you are by messaging me and asking for a favor. And do not make every haircut a favor. So just keep that in mind. So the second thing I want to talk about is what to do if you're running late. This is huge. It was such a big, painful part of my career for the longest time. See, for many, many years, I used to book on the half hour, and every half hour I would take a haircut, and I would be like sprinting through every haircut, and I would have 2 minutes to clean up in between clients, if that. And during that time, I was doing so many haircuts so fast, so often, that if anybody was late, I couldn't take them. It was like an official rule. In fact, if you go look at my Yelp reviews from my old salon, I got negative reviews for turning people away when they were late. So if you're running late, these days it's not so bad because I book longer for each appointment and it's a much more casual, laid-back environment, and that's part of what you're paying for now, is that you don't have to rush so much. You can be a little bit late with me now, but here's what you do if you are late. You call my receptionist and you be absolutely honest about how late you are. See, what I've had clients do many times over the years is they'll call and say, oh, I'm going to be 5 minutes late, and they want to kind of pad the blow by lying about how late they actually are. And then after they call and say they're going to be 5 minutes late, they show up 18 minutes late. And now when you call and say you're 5 minutes late, I'm like, it's fine, just come on in. But then when you show up 18 minutes late, now I don't have time to cut your hair. And it's going to throw my whole day off if I take you, and so I have to turn you away. And it could have been avoided. You could have saved the drive, you could have saved the time, you could have saved frustration all the way around if you were just honest and said, look, there's bad traffic, I'm actually going to be 18 minutes late. And then we'd say, hey, we can't take you if you're 18 minutes late, let's reschedule you. And here's a secret, when that happens, that you are absolutely priority to get back in ASAP, like, because I know you need a haircut. You at least went through the effort of making an appointment and then calling to say that you were late. So don't just not call. That's dishonesty by omission, right? Don't just not call if you're going to be late. And don't call and lie about how late you are, because that will freaking screw everything up. There was probably one time in my career that I can honestly remember being like angry with a client. And this guy, he was running late. He called and said, oh, I'm going to be 5 minutes late. And then 18 minutes later, and see, I remember these numbers very specifically because I was like fuming. I was sitting in my chair thinking, okay, well, when he knew he was going to be late, he decided not to come. But he walks in 18 minutes late, and the way that my salon was set up at the time, I could hear him in the front desk, but he couldn't see me. And I heard the receptionist telling him, like, hey, you're 18 minutes late, Andrew can't take you now. And he was like, oh, okay, it sucks, and he left. So then he messages me on Instagram right away, and he lies to me again and says, I was 5 minutes late. And I was so mad because I was like, you were 18 minutes late. Like, be honest about this. If you are going to be 18 minutes late, just say, I'm going to be 18 minutes late. What can we do? And I'll be cool with you. I'll say, you know what, I can't take you, but I'll fit you on at the end of the day. And that's usually what I do about it. But if you lie to me and you say, oh, I'm going to be 5 minutes late, and you show up 18 minutes late, there's nothing I can do for you. Like, that is frustrating. Because at least if you tell me up front, I'm going to be 18 minutes late, like, I'm happy to take you at the end of the day then. But yeah, so I hope all that makes sense. If you are running late, be brutally honest about how late you are, and you will get the best results out of it. Number 2.5 is how to come in with your hair for a haircut. I get a lot of clients who will come in wearing a hat, and they go, oh, I knew I was getting a haircut today, so I just put a hat on in the morning. And wearing a hat to get a haircut is one of the worst things you can do. It puts that dent here. It makes it really hard to work with the hair, and especially if you're doing a fade, because the hair just like sits flat to the head there. Putting on a hat is like the worst thing you can do. So ideally, and this is just my own personal taste here, if you're coming in for your first haircut ever with me, come in with your hair styled the way that you normally would style it. This tells me a ton about your hair and about you. I can see already what you were going for. I can see how much you know about styling your hair. I can see exactly what you've been doing with your hair, instead of having to ask like, well, how do you usually cut it, or what do you usually do? Like if you come in with it styled the way you usually style your hair, it tells me so much about your hair and about you, and it's super, super helpful, like more than words. If you've had your hair cut with me and I know your hair very well, the best way to come in for a haircut is to shampoo your hair in the morning and then let it air dry, and then come in with it just air dried and clean. That's just the easiest hair to work with. And I could shampoo it. Like I have no problem shampooing hair. In any case, whether you have the hat hair or loaded up product, like I have no problem shampooing hair. But I just find that hair that's been air dried and allowed to sit and do its thing all day just works a little better. It's a lot easier to work with. It's a lot easier to get good results out of it. To where freshly shampooed hair kind of like sticks out. Have you ever noticed when your hair is fresh and clean, it's like bigger? So if it's at all within your control, that's what I would recommend to do as far as how to have your hair when you come in. If it's your first visit, come in with it fully styled. If you've been in my chair before and you don't need to do anything important that morning, just don't even style it. Shampoo it, let it air dry, and come in fluffy. Number 3 is how to request a haircut. Now this is kind of a huge topic that honestly could be its own 15-minute video, so I'll give you like the brief version of it here. But I see a lot of magazine articles and blog posts and YouTube videos talking about how to ask for a haircut. And there's so many resources that are trying to teach consumers how to like speak barber and what number to ask for, and buzzwords like, give me an undercut with a drop fade and a... See, if I say, hey, I want an undercut with a 2 on the sides, that could be this haircut or it could be this haircut. And they both fit the same description if you're trying to use, honestly, like barber terms. And if you're gonna use these barber terms, you're gonna have to use like a paragraph of them. And by the time you end up doing that, there's so many little areas with room for interpretation, and like in different places they call different haircuts different things. And so you could read in this article that it's called this, and maybe it doesn't translate right to the barber. So when you wanna ask for a haircut, this is like the easiest way I've found. Find pictures of hair that you like, and find exactly 2 pictures. Don't find 1, don't find 10. If somebody sits in my chair with 10 pictures, what I find is 5 of them are the exact same haircuts on different people, which is cool. Gives me a general idea that, okay, they probably want that haircut. But then the other 5 are completely different from the first 5. And so if I'm looking at 10 photos, I'm like, okay, I still don't know what you want. If I'm looking at 1 photo, what tends to happen is somebody will show me a picture of Peaky Blinders and they go, I want this look, but realistically it's a bowl haircut, and they really just like it because the guy has a cool suit and he's lit cool and he's posing and everything. And so with 1 photo, a lot of times you can't see certain aspects of the haircut, but if I can compare 2 photos side by side, I can look at the similarities between the 2, and then it makes it much easier to discuss further what you want to do with your hair. So find exactly 2 photos of your haircut. Don't worry about learning barber terms. And in fact, use layman's terms, but be very detailed about what you want. Say, I like volume, but I don't like messy. Or I like messy, but I don't like volume. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't have to come in and say, oh, I want 3 3/4 inches here and a number 2 on the sides. Now, some barbers might prefer that kind of instruction, but to me, take 2 inches off doesn't tell me what you want the hair to look like. It doesn't tell me what you want the hair to act like, but exactly 2 photos can tell me exactly the vibe that you want to go for, the finish you want to go for, and then we can further the conversation from there and talk about how much time you want to spend styling it, how often do you want to come back for a haircut, and we can tweak certain things to make it fit your needs a little bit more. Number 4 is how to sit for a haircut, and it might sound like I always have a really hard time critiquing the way clients sit, because I feel like you have to tell little kids to sit still, and so when I tell an adult, like, hey man, sit still, I feel like it's condescending a little bit, like they should know, and so when I have to say it, like I just feel like it makes me feel like a jerk. And so hopefully by saying it in this video, I can be a jerk here and I don't ever have to be a jerk in person. I had a client one time who was very like, kind of like aggressive type, like real dominant male kind of guy, and real tough guy, right? And so he would move so much when he talked, and he didn't realize it, and I was afraid to tell him like, hey man, you move a lot when you talk. Like he was one of those guys that talked with his hands a lot, and he would do this during his haircuts, and one time I was cutting his hair and I actually botched it. Like I was lining him up and he moved and I botched his haircut, and he was so mad at me. Like I thought he was gonna fight me. I was like, oh my God, this is it, this is the end. And then I thought back and I'm like, why the hell didn't I just tell him to sit still? And so that's the obvious thing that you're supposed to learn, like during your first couple haircuts, is sit still. If you realize that you're a hand talker. Like I've realized that at times I can definitely talk with my hands. If you realize you're a hand talker, hold the chair. If you have somebody next to you or with you who's getting a haircut, don't talk to them. That drives me nuts. Like I always have to remind clients, like, hey, they can hear you if you don't turn your head. If you really have a hard time not turning and looking at the person who came with you to get a haircut that you're talking to during your haircut, if you have such a hard time doing that, don't bring somebody. Sit still and look straight forward. Now, the other thing is these armrests on the chair. I mean, I can't really hold this against clients because when you find armrests, you go, oh, cool, I'm going to rest on them. These things, what tends to happen with these, especially with shorter clients, is they'll sit down, they'll put their arms on them, and these things are meant to rest your arms on. But people will sit down and rest their entire body weight on them, and what it does is it pushes your shoulders up, and so you get these areas, these corners near the back of the head that I physically cannot get the clipper in there. And I have to tell people like, hey, take your arms off the armrest, and they're like shocked. They're like, oh, but there's armrests there, can't I use them? But be mindful, like, look, see my shoulders? This is really, really hard to cut somebody's hair. If you slump down and you put all your weight on your arms, I can't get to the back of your head. I can't reach around your shoulders there. Like literally the back of the clipper will hit your shoulder before I can get it to the nape there to taper your hair. So don't put all your weight on your arms. Sit up, and if you're gonna rest your arms on the armrest, make sure that your shoulders are down. And then another thing, similar to that, is don't slump forward. I get a lot of people who will melt in the chair over time, and I'll have to, I actually say to them, hey, you're melting again. And so they'll sit in the chair like this to begin with, and then as the haircut goes on, they start doing this, and they pull their head forward. And then I have to reach over their hunchback to get to the haircut, and it becomes really hard to do a haircut that way. So don't sit in the chair and do what I just did and slump down like this. Sit in the chair straight up, rest your arms on the rest, make sure that you're not doing that. You want to keep everything in the middle upright and straight. Just pretend you're in the military or something. You're like, okay, I'm wearing my uniform and I got to be proper. Actually, you know what I tell people is sit like you're a ballerina. And they go, what? But for some reason, that kind of imagery brings to mind a posture. You know, I'm like, hey, sit like a ballerina. And they go, oh, okay. Number 5, ask all the questions, especially during styling. I get a feeling sometimes clients don't want to ask too many questions. They don't want to like be annoying or something. There is no question I've ever been asked from a client about their hair or about anything that has annoyed me. In fact, I find that the clients who ask more questions get more out of their service. Ask every question you can. Don't be afraid. And especially as we're styling your hair, you want to ask questions, how to recreate it. A lot of times too, I'll even take my tools and hand them to my client and have them try to style their own hair so I can coach them through it. You will get so much more out of your service if you're asking all these questions, especially again regarding the styling, because when you go home and style your hair, you got to recreate what we're doing. It's a common thing that I see on Instagram. Like I'll post a haircut that was very strategically styled and people go, yeah, but the client can't recreate that at home. Well, they can recreate something. I can teach them how to do something with it. And so if you ask these questions, like, hey, can you, like when I blow dry it, it's not quite turning out like when you do. Can you walk me through that? Ask all the questions. Like you cannot ask a stupid question. And especially regarding any of these points. Like if you go, dang, Andrew said that I should stop messaging you for haircuts. Is it okay if I message you for haircuts? And your personal barber or stylist can give you that answer for them because I can't answer for them. I want you, if you're interested, if you're like, hey, what's that thing you put in my hair before you blow dried it? Ask me. I mean, I really should be on top of explaining what it is. And most of the time, I guess I do. But any questions about any of the products I'm using, if I always use this product to style your hair and today I use this product instead, go, hey, that's different. Like, why do you use the different one today? You will not annoy me. You know, even if I'm doing the cut and I use a different technique during the cut opposed to what we normally do, hey, I noticed you cut it differently today. Normally you fade from the bottom up. Today you fade it from the top down. What's up with that? Like, ask all the questions. Number 6, how to rebook. I guess this is somewhat related to the first topic, but obviously if there's online booking, rebook online. If there's a receptionist in the salon, on the way out, stop and talk to the receptionist. But if you have a barber or a stylist who's very busy and they usually have a 2, 3, 5 week wait to get in for an appointment, rebook your next appointment, certainly. And if they're consistently hard to get in with, don't default to asking for a favor. Book 2 or 3 appointments out. And I get that a lot of you guys don't have a regular, consistent schedule to where you know that you'll have that day off work or whatever. But it's better and easier for everybody if you pre-book a couple appointments, and then if you can't make the next one, just cancel it. There's somebody waiting to get in on the cancellation list, so don't feel bad canceling an appointment. So a lot of my clients who are like every 2 weeks or like very, very regular like that, they'll book appointments for like 3-4 months out, just every other Friday or every other Saturday for months at a time. And it just makes life so much easier for everybody. If you are on that really consistent routine haircut schedule, pre-book and rebook, and do not leave without making sure that you're pre-booked. Now, when I was exclusively doing online booking, what I would do at the end of the appointment is I would just remind the client, like, hey, before you even leave here, just sit down, have another beer, and book your next couple appointments online. And I didn't even have to prompt a lot of them to do it because they just understood that's how they're going to get in easily. So if you're able to pre-book appointments, that just makes everything so much easier for everybody. You don't have to worry about it. And again, it's so much easier to call and reschedule if you have something booked, or it's so much easier to call and cancel if you have something booked. Because like I said, if somebody has an appointment and they tend to kind of be priority, like if somebody made an appointment and they have to move it last minute, but somebody else never made an appointment and they want a favor to get in, it's a lot easier to help the person who made the appointment already, and they usually will get priority. The final piece of advice, number 7 here, that was hard to do. Is that 7? Yeah, okay. The final piece of advice is how to cancel an appointment. So going back to all the points we made, sometimes we have a receptionist, sometimes we have online booking, sometimes we like to deal with our clients ourselves personally. Whatever means you have, if you have to cancel an appointment, please do so. It cost me $10,000 in 1 year from the amount of people who didn't call to cancel and just didn't show up. If you're not going to make it, call and cancel, because there's people waiting to get in, as I talked about in the beginning of this video. There's other people who I can move around. Life can be so much easier if I just know that you're not coming in. It is so incredibly inconvenient if I have clients who just don't show up at all. Now, for a couple years there, and I'm about to start implementing this again, for a couple years there, I would take credit card information up front, and if you didn't cancel and you didn't show up, you were charged full price for your haircut. And during the 3 or 4 years that I was doing that, I think I had maybe 1 no-show. And then they called me later to explain, like, oh, this thing happened, I was in the hospital or whatever. And of course I didn't charge him. But the threat of that definitely had people calling to cancel. And not that this is like completely selfish here, because it's not just about me, it's about the other clients who want to get in. If you're not going to show up, I'm telling you, there is a list of people who want your spot. And if you steal that spot from them by making an appointment and not showing up, I'm going to charge you, because I'm having to tell clients no, and I'm having to be rude. At the beginning of this video, I was rude and said, don't message me to squeeze you in. I have to do that because people make appointments and don't show up. I probably have a vein sticking out of my neck right now. So even if you have a 12 o'clock appointment and it's 12:15 and you suddenly remembered, call and say, hey, I know I had a 12 o'clock, just let Andrew know I'm not coming. But at least now I know I can move other things around, or I can readjust my day. And maybe like, I actually do have clients who live so close to the salon that I could at that point say, hey, run down here right now. And it's just helpful for everybody, the entire ecosystem of the salon. Other people can get in. I can arrange things to make things better for myself and for other people. Call and cancel if you are going to be late. And then again, if you call and cancel, I will make it very, very easy to get you back in. I will get you back in anytime. Like, you have top priority because you had an appointment and you couldn't make it. Like, I will take you at the end of the day if that's what it takes. I'll come back the next week and fit you in or whatever. But if you don't show up at all, you're not getting any favors. So I hope this list offended some people, but in a good way offended, to where you go, oh, I never thought of that. Dang, Andrew's being a jerk here, but also he has a point. I think sometimes being a little bit offensive with some of this stuff is a good way to get people to really stop and think about what they've been doing. Some of these things are such inconveniences on us as professionals. Some of these things are just slightly inconvenient. But from our perspective, or not even our perspective, I can't speak for all barbers and stylists, but from my perspective, those are the things that make my job hard. And with a little bit of cooperation and understanding on both of our parts, it could just make my job so much easier. And more importantly, it can make your experience so much better. It can be so much easier to make an appointment if you call and cancel. It can be so much easier to make an appointment if you pre-book it. It can be so much easier to make an appointment if you just booked through the website. Anyways, thanks for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed it or learned something from it. Be sure to like and subscribe if you were into it, and be sure to leave a thumbs down if you weren't into it. Thank you.